Hello, my name is Wesley Aston, and thank you for watching my series on how I shoot and edit my time lapses. For this section, we'll be starting at the beginning and focusing on camera gear and tools for shooting a time lapse. Whether you shoot with your phone, GoPro, or SLR, there is a way you can shoot a time lapse. The easiest way of shooting a time lapse is just shooting a video and speeding it up, but that can take a lot of memory. With your phone, you can buy camera apps to help you shoot a time lapse on your phone, but you can also get apps to control your SLR too. Some help with just shooting the delays you set, but then you can go more advanced and use the app for ramping your shots and shoot day to night transitions. One app I use is called Q Digital SLR Dashboard, and it works well with the first program I use to process my time lapses called LRTimelapse. See my video walkthrough on this program. So the two main ways I shoot time lapses are with that intervalometer and then an app I bought for my Sony camera. The Sony app costs $10 and it has a handful of choices for me to use. There are choices such as shooting a sunrise or a sunset, shooting night scenes, or even gives me some custom settings too. This app will do ramping for me, which means the exposure changes to adjust as the light changes, so I won't go way overexposed or underexposed in my time lapse. This app lets me pick the intervals and how many shots I want to shoot. It also gives me the time needed at that adjustment that I set, so I know how long I'm going to shoot for. Also, I can pick a few choices for the output files. It'll create the video for me, it'll save it in JPEG, or it'll save it in RAW. And if I want, it'll let me save it in all three, which is pretty cool. With my Canon cameras, I use a standard intervalometer, which I can get starting at about $20. This is simple to use and it just plugs into my camera when I want to use it. The intervalometer gives you different options for shooting, but the main thing you need here is just the interval feature. This lets me pick how often I want to take the picture. I try to get at least 300 shots to make a 10-second time lapse rendered at 30 frames per second. If I fire a shot every 2 seconds for 10 minutes, I'll get 300 shots. If I adjust the time in between the shots, I do the math to see how long I need to shoot for. So depending on the scenes, your camera settings will be opposite from each other. Like for example, if I'm shooting a daytime scene, I will set my ISO pretty low and close down my aperture. But shooting at night, I will shoot at high ISO and open up my aperture and also shoot a much longer exposure too. So shooting a time lapse is just like shooting a photo, only it's followed by many more. Some of the best settings are shooting in manual mode and manual focus. This is so your focus doesn't shift and your exposure doesn't jump around. The biggest issue I run into is flickering. Even though my settings and my focus are set the same, the aperture of the lens can be a little jumpy. Each time the photo fires off, the lens moves to the aperture to what it's set to. Sometimes it's not exact every time, and this will create the flickering. There are a few ways to fix or avoid this. The easiest is to shoot with a manual lens. With this lens, you can set the f-stop on the lens, and it stays the same the whole time. Another way is tricking the camera to think it is a manual lens, but not every SLR and lens combination will do this. First, set your camera to the aperture for your scene. Then press the aperture preview button on the front of your camera, and while holding that button down, you will press the lens release button and twist your lens slightly until it reads a 00 for the f-stop. Fire off a couple shots to see if you get an error. If no, then this means it might work for you. Some of my lenses don't work this way, but that doesn't mean I won't use them to shoot a time lapse. I get flickering and I have to fix them with software. This is where the program LRTimelapse comes into play. It does a great job at fixing flicker and can save a bad sequence and make it a good one. So when you're ready to start shooting, make sure you've got plenty of memory card space and double check, even triple check your settings, because nothing's worse than after you've shot a time lapse and you've realized something you've done wrong. I've been there many times. Now if you want to add a little motion to your time lapse, check out my video on using a slider. And once you're ready to process, check out my other videos on LRTimelapse and After Effects. And thanks for watching.